So, welcome to our last session, actually last final roundtable. Thanks for surviving, for making it so far. We have something quite different now. This very gorgeous people on my left-hand side are all members of the so-called cultural industries. I say so-called because it's, from my point of view, it's still a bit, quite of an adjustment to call industries art and performance and culture. But yes, they are cultural industries. So they will, the roundtable will work in this way. Each guest is going to introduce themselves and talk about their specific perspective on celebrity. They have 5 to 6 minutes, which, having forgotten my phone, I can't keep time, so I will disappear, and Michelle will keep the time. Yeah. No, I will disappear and grab my phone in a minute. So we will have this first 5-6 minutes. Then I think we will have a couple of follow-up questions, and then we will open the discussion to the floor, and we will have some time for questions from you, of course. So, running order. We are going to start with Tumi Williams. Yes?
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Great to be here. My name is Tumi Williams. I'm based in Cardiff, Wales. I've come from Cardiff, Wales today. I'm a musician, a promoter, and I've been a music agent for about 15 or so years. Predominantly promoting and supporting genres such as hip-hop, jazz, funk, Afrobeat, and those sort of genres. In my time doing this, I guess I've come across quite a few celebrities, in quote, in those years, from bookings, from playing alongside, from being on panels, like such. And is it just an introduction, or am I going straight in?
No, you are going also to have your 5 minutes to talk about your experience and perspectives on celebrity.
Absolutely, thank you. I guess I come in with like, from my point of view, like celebrity isn't necessarily, for me, it isn't necessarily about mainstream fame or how big their houses are or how much they've got in their bank account. Coming from a background of, as I said earlier, from jazz and hip hop, I think, from my experience and for what I believe in, I think a celebrity to me is someone who's found somehow, some way uplifted the community around them, or pushed sort of the message of peace and love, or just basically done something that's beyond what we see in mainstream media, I guess. It's been, for me, from my point of view, especially as a black musician in Wales, being visible takes a lot more work than our opposite white counterparts, I say. It's been watching these people who are called celebrities rise, I guess, and get to the point where they're called celebrities, has taken a lot more than just the talent, a lot more than just having a good voice or being a good sportsman. I find that the celebrities that I've worked with over the years have had to endure more than just that, and more than just being a pretty face. So I'm coming from a place where I think compared to today's world, where a TikTok artist or musician can tap on their knees, and if they do it really fast, they can go viral. I'm quite young. I'm only 40, but growing up, I grew up in an era where you couldn't access those celebrities. They were kind of only on TV, or you hear them on radio. You don't get to see their day-to-day activities on social media. A time where you actually had to put to be, from my point of view, to be a celebrity in my world, you actually had to put the work in. You had to be on the streets. You actually had to be a voice of the people, rather than just, I guess, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's you get what I'm talking about. So for me, as a black musician, celebrity is not. It's tough. It's not just. It's about survival, really. I think to be a celebrity, a black celebrity nowadays, and not just. Yeah, that's kind of my point of view.
Thank you. Perfect timing, to me. So next speaker on my list is Sally Burgess. Welcome, Sally.
Shall I go?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Really interesting to me what you've just said. I grew up, as it happens in South Africa, a child of London parents with an older sister, and my dad built us because he was an electrician, and he went to somebody's house to do some rewiring and saw that the dad in that family had created a little theatre for his sons in their garage. And so he came home and told us all about it. And we said, oh, can we have one in our attic, which you could access from the road? So he did, and we created shows. My sister was in charge. We lived in Durban, which is a seaside town. I don't know if it's a city, might be a city. There was lots of entertainment during the summer. In the Little Top, it was called, on the little theatre on the beach. So I grew up entertaining. My parents were interested in amateur music, and they made music a lot. My mother went and had singing lessons so that she could sing better and more confidently at parties. And she became rather good and ended up singing leader recitals on the SABC, and as well as being Lady Tiang in the first South African production of a Rodgers and Hammerstein show, The King and I. So I grew up with all that kind of music, and that's the kind of music that I sang, as well as going to hear visiting companies coming to South Africa who did all sorts of operas and ballets, and that was inspiring to hear people singing, for instance, Gilbert and Sullivan, and get a bee in my brain singing from Pirates of Penzance, the soprano song with all that staccato singing. We then came to London, and I went to school, and my dad decided he wouldn't pay for my studies at music college because my sister had been a bad girl and not attended her lessons at another music college. So I thought I would be a cabaret singer. And my parents had a contact with somebody who owned the Astor nightclub, which used to be in Leicester Square, not Leicester Square. A nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. That's where it was, in Berkeley Square. And then my dad came to collect me from one of these lessons, which I never told my schoolmates or my teachers that I was going to, because I thought they'd stop me doing it. But I went once a week on a Thursday to work with this lady in this rather tatty-looking posh nightclub with a very tatty without the lights on, and she taught me how to sing cabaret songs. And my dad picked me up and said, so how's Sal doing then? And she said, she's doing rather well. And she could do better than this. And she should go to music college. And so I went to music college.
Yay.
And then a lot of stuff happened after that.
I love it.
Well,
And I was given lots of opportunities. And I suppose I became a celebrity.
yeah,
But I
definitely.
don't look
Sally
upon-
Burgess.
I don't look upon myself as a celebrity. I wanted to sing. I didn't really mind where I sang, as long as I sang. And I've always been very interested in theatre and physicality of performing, and I now teach, having hung up my tiaras and stopped singing. I teach one-to-one singing, vocal technique, how to think, how to create stories, how to use the voice as a storyteller, create moods and move audiences, move people, but also how physically how it's important to use one's physicality, all sorts of stuff. So I've probably done my 5 minutes.
You have perfectly well. Thank you, Sally. Salvatore Scalzo is our next speaker.
Also story, okay. I'm coming from a family of mad women. My grandmother was a muse to Modigliani, the artist, in Paris. He used to get drunk all the time in a Rotonde restaurant in Paris. Absolutely pissed, all the time drunk. My grandmother was one of those people that was a part of the libertines in Piedmont in Italy, in Turin, which created all this group of women which will protest about everything and believe in the future and not in the past. And all of them got really kind of slated, really, by the press and everything else. But they survived in Piedmont, but nothing else. Big fans of the arts. Well, my family was the Chirico and the things like that. So big family there. My mama was one of the first women to work in La Scala in Milan as a manager and a stage manager. So she looked after all the major stars that came to La Scala. And I remember probably at the age of 6 doing my homework in one of the boxes, number 5 in La Scala, which is on stage to do my homework while everybody else was singing in the arias and operas and whatever, and ballet by that point, Margot Fontaine and all that. Coming to La Scala, that's what it was. So I mean, brought up in that kind of environment. My mama was a big fan, of course. I'm going to drop names here of Callas, of course, a big name of Callas. I spent 4 years or 5 years, which I was very blessed, thank God for that, to be able to actually talk, chat, and have a conversation with her. You know, I was about 15 years old, but I remember it so well. And I remember it more when I went to see that Callas movie, who just came out with Angelina Jolie. Because I never thought about it, you know, that past gone, my life went on, moving on, and everything else. But when I was watching the film, and the first scene open on the film, it was like, oh, I remember that sofa. I remember the bedroom. I remember the kitchen. You know, when I used to have a glass of milk and a little pan di stelle, which is a little cookie with chocolate on it, and I used to have that one dipped into the milk while we were talking about Traviata in the bedroom. So things like that. I'm coming from that environment where divas, not opera singers, divas come from. I was introduced then to John Sutherland and the people like that, to which I'm very grateful. I never liked her, by the way, not a singer. A wonderful woman, but not a singer. No addiction whatsoever. She couldn't say a word in Italian or French or German for that reason. But I loved the woman. You know, she was a great person, quiet, relaxing, never a diva, but a big name in the opera world. She was named as Stupenda, I think it was, by Italians, because they thought that after Callas, what can you do? So she was a big name like that. And I was introduced, and strange enough, I don't know why, but over the years, people always ask me, oh, how was it? And I'm thinking, Montserrat Caballé, why you ask me, how was the aria? And they will ask you their opinion or somebody else which was outside to actually see how that sounded, to me, and that went on and on. So I went to work, I rebelled to the opera world because too much opera. I was little, and when I was about 15, 16 or 17, I decided to, let's leave it. I'm going to go somewhere else and do other things altogether. So I went to America. I was only about 18 years old, just about 18 years old. I walked into this hotel, and they asked me to become a VIP manager. Would you believe it? And with no experience, no English whatsoever. I've done French, German, and Latin at school, so that's all I did. And I looked after all these celebrities, from Paul Newman to many other, Tina Turner, that kind of people altogether. But then was always something to me about opera and music and ballet. You can't just avoid it. You might just keep up for a while, leave it, get to the Sex Pistols for a while, and then you need to come back to really what I really wanted it. And by that point, I worked with other people. I did the Barcelona tour with Montserrat Caballé. I did a few other things altogether. Angela Giorgio came in life in 1992, so why not, So I worked with these people and chatted with these people all the way through. And one day I was somewhere watching something, and there was Sonnambula, the opera, and the aria at the end of Sonnambula is beautiful, the aria at the end of it. And my mom always said, if you keep the high note from the 4th floor to the ground level, is a good singer. And it came into my mind, I was listening to it, and I went down to the ground floor, she didn't do it. I said, oh my God, And then I decided to just carry on and join the opera world again. And I was at the Colosseum for a while. Then I did contemporary dance. I went to Sadler's Wells. I did the Sadler's Wells contemporary dance. I walked very close to another amazing woman, Pina Bausch. Oh, the woman was amazing. I still miss her so much. And from that, I went to work now at the Opera House. I look after the artists, but all the young ones coming up from colleges and Trinity College and all that people coming over. We talk about it, we chat about it, they ask me questions, and I'll still carry on with the same thing I used to do, guide them to sometimes the right place, guide them about, things they need to do, the diction, learning, training. It's a hard work, you need to hard work, because otherwise you're not going to make it. And now I just got my BFE training certificate on teaching class and teaching opera and learning opera or helping people in opera who got ADHD, which is an amazing thing to do for people who got ADHD because the music relaxes them. It gives them a sense, and they connected to the feeling that the music has. I'm sure 5 minutes.
Oh, you are over.
Sorry. That's it. That's me. Thank you.
It's so fascinating. I couldn't stop you, but now I have to. Thank you, Salvatore. And Ivan Hewett is our next speaker.
Well, I feel so dowdy in comparison to these interesting people with their fascinating personal stories, which I can't emulate at all, I'm sorry to say. But I would like to pick on something Tumi said, which is about the way being a celebrity, in musical arts, it involves great talent, obviously, but it involves this the extra thing. There's some kind of X factor that makes this person a celebrity over here, and this other person just a very good singer, or actor, or whatever. And I was trying to put my finger on what this thing might be. It's not easy. It's a mysterious phenomenon, celebrity, because within celebrity there are different grades, aren't there? There's the diva, and at another level there's the icon, which is something even more mysterious somehow. And in trying to sort of casting around, trying to put my finger on what this thing might be, I thought, well, why don't I look back to the 19th century and look at somebody who was not a singer or an actor, but was undoubtedly a massive celebrity. Franz Liszt, you know, the great man, the pianist who was, according to some, the most famous man of the 19th century, you know. And I thought, who left the best record of Franz Liszt and what his magic was? And of course, it's the poet Heinrich Heine. So I brought along one of his pen portraits of Liszt in his pomp. I've now lost my page, so I knew this was going to happen. Yeah, he's reviewing a concert of 1841, where he says, he exerts a magic that borders on the fabulous. Well, I mean, there it is, you know, that is celebrity, isn't it? Magic. Compared with him, all piano players are nothing, with the exception of one, Chopin, that Raphael of the fortepiano. Indeed, with one exception, all other piano players whom we heard this year are nothing but piano players. They excel through the skill with which they manipulate the strung wood. Whereas with Liszt, you no longer think about triumphed over difficulties. The piano disappears, and what you get is music. In this respect, Liszt has made the most marvelous progress since we last heard him. With this advantage, he combines a calm that we previously missed. For example, when he played a thunderstorm on the fortepiano, we saw the lightning bolts flicker over his face, as it were, from the downpour that was represented. Now, when he plays even the most powerful thunderstorm, he rises above it like the traveller who stands on the summit of a mountain while thunder rolls in the valley. So he's become this kind of, he floats at some high level, you know, nothing bothers him. Despite his genius, Liszt encounters an opposition here in Paris that may be the result of that very genius. This is something else, isn't it? That celebrities often, as well as inspiring awe, sometimes inspire kind of resentment. That quality is in certain eyes an enormous crime that cannot be sufficiently punished. Talent is pardoned, but genius is unforgivable, said Lord Byron. And then in another review, I'll just a couple of lines from where Heine describes how the audience responded. How powerful, how shattering was the effect of his mere appearance. How riotous was the applause that was clapped in his direction. Bouquets were thrown at his feet. It was a noble scene, the way the conquering hero calmly allowed the bouquets to rain down upon him. And how he stuck a red camellia, which he pulled from one bouquet, on his breast. You know, so it's like, yes, I'll take that flower. You know. And it's such a wonderful picture of someone who's totally in command of their celebrity. And maybe, you know, coming forward to our present day, thinking about how celebrity works now, and it seems to be rather different now. Salvatore mentioned the Callas film, which is an enormously different kind of celebrity, isn't it? Because there we're dealing with a woman who's absolutely not in control of her celebrity, and is, you know, somewhat of a victim of these ghastly men with whom she encounters, and suffers for it. And I wonder whether in her case and in many other cases that this X factor that Tumi mentioned is a suffering. You have to endure a sort of, your art is a permanent sort of Calvary, you know, that you have to suffer to attain this quality of the celebrity. And it made me also wonder whether, I just throw this out there, whether celebrity has in more recent times become a bit sort of feminized. It's hard looking around the world now, isn't it, to find the Liszt example of celebrity. You know, the kind of emperor. Who, now it does seem to be more associated with wounds, and also it's associated more with being familiar. You know, we knew nothing about Liszt. He didn't give any interviews, you know. There were no mass media. You had to enjoy the magic, talismanic presence of the man himself in that room. Whereas nowadays, you know, the image of celebrity is endlessly multiplied. And also, it comes hand in hand with endless interviews, you know, so we know all about the person, so we feel somehow close to them. And we know all about their traumas and, you know, what they're like for breakfast and what have you. And yet, by some weird paradox, they're still remote. And that's a paradox I find very hard to grasp, and maybe something we might chew over the next 45 minutes or whatever. Anyway, just a few thoughts.
Thank you, Ivan. Thanks. And now our first round of thoughts is going to be concluded. is going to be concluded by Carol Leeming. Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm from Leicester, Windrush parents, and as a little girl, I was very affected by two divas, uber divas I would call them. That's Shirley Bassey and Aretha Franklin. And I had a life where I ended up as a youth and community worker, got married, had children, all of that, and never thought I'd be an artist. I only took up the arts when I was about 30, and I became a fierce ruling diva of house music globally. So I was on major record labels and touring around the world and having adulation and flowers and gifts thrown at me and all that sort of thing. But I would just say that I left the music industry and I have lots of different thoughts and perspectives about what it's like to be a female artist and performer, and in particular to be hailed as a diva, and what that actually means and what that means today in our mass consumerism, TikTok, social media, and how we want to know everything about our icons. And I would just raise something about divas being sacred, going back to someone standing in the middle of a ring and singing or orating. I can project, can't you? You can hear me.
It's more for the live stream.
Sorry, for the live stream. So I wanted to just introduce that, the idea of the diva as sacred, as a powerful force. And I think probably the best way to sum up some of my thoughts about the dark side of being a diva, and particularly being a black diva in this very exploitative music industry, is by actually reciting a poem of mine from my chapbook, which is a praise song for black divas, because I wanted to write about the way that we take them into our heart and soul and into our lives, and their songs and their music become a soundtrack for our life. Praise song for black divas. All hail ebony angelitos, unleashed women with gilded throats, their burnished skin singing high notes of camellias, carnations, jasmine, lotuses, daisies. Melody is worn on their faces, a wry sadness like golden marigold petals falling in snow around clay feet in stilettos. Stood there, wily indigo sirens, unabashed femmes with honeyed mouths, zesty timbred voices clap hands, play finger snaps, tambourines, triangles, claves, snares, to cast spells. Rhythm is wrapped in their bodies with sly ecstasy like a raucous band or choir. African voices rise from their blood, winding snaky hips in satin. Bright eyes cat-lined, they sear our souls with lava luminescent laments, ruminations, siren trills, screams, or tremulous coos, while they stand there in black fire star shimmer just beyond us all. So I think that poem illustrates that, thank you, how we take divas into ourselves, but actually they are not of ourselves. There is that distance that was referred to. And then maybe later we can look at how the mythology of the diva is constructed and how divas, their own identity, and then how audiences and the media are a part of that.
Thanks. This was splendid. Shall we? Okay. Wow, so it did take a quite unexpected turn with all this bringing in your personal stories, which were really appreciated. I am really moved. And I wanted to pick up on a couple of things that emerged from both Tumi and now Carol. What makes a diva? Or what makes a celebrity, what whatever name we want to use. And Tumi was mentioning you need to be there on the media. You know what I mean. You need to do something more than it's just pursuing your art. And now Carol also hinted to these multiple elements that build the celebrity figure. Business and show is something that keeps emerging. So I wanted to ask whoever of you, feel free to respond in the order or not to respond to this question, but what are these two elements? How important they are? How do they contribute to the construction of celebrity? Business and show.
I might start on that. I was told when I was in my music career that the maxim, it's 20% show, 80% business. And I remember when we had a conversation, I had to explain what that was. And I make a distinction between celebrity and divadom, as I would call it, or being a diva. I think divas are part of a tradition. They have a legacy. They have a special role. And as has been mentioned, not everyone's a diva. You can be a celebrity, but you're not necessarily a diva. And you can be a celebrity through social media and the media and promotion, but that doesn't necessarily make you a diva. A diva has training, experience, skills, a gravitas. They come from something. They know they're continuing something. They're part of a cultural legacy and tradition.
Okay, thank you.
So if I could just interject a question. So does that mean a celebrity is a sort of construct, really, of the media?
A celebrity is more of a beast of the media and paparazzi.
Okay. I think Tumi wanted to.
Yeah. I guess this is where a celebrity is based on paparazzi and back in the day. Nowadays is followers, and how many likes you get. You find, people would tap into something that's got X amount of likes just because of that and read into it further. Business and show. In the hip-hop world, in the jazz world, when I was growing up, my mum's born on the same day as Fela Kuti. I don't know if anyone's heard of Fela Kuti in the room.
Yep.
For those who don't know, Fela Kuti is the godfather of Afrobeat music. He's from Lagos, Nigeria. Rest in peace. I saw his show when I was 9, and it was like a 2-hour show. But most of that show was not actually, about half of the show was music, but the other half of the show was him actually addressing the audience and talking about, he's anti-government, he was an activist. That was, for me, for my parents as well, and the Nigerian people, from what I gathered at the time, was more powerful than the records he sold. So I think the show side of the show, from a hip hop perspective, is the performance, is the talent, and then I guess the business side of things, as I mentioned earlier, I think for black artists that I've come across, and myself, speaking of myself, is survival. You haven't really got a choice. I think you've got to have that side of you. I think because there's a lot of exploitation within the music industry, and if you don't understand the business, then look at 90s hip hop, which is quite heavily exploited by record labels. It was the narrative was guns and big bums and gold chains, and that was what a celebrity was meant to look like. In your videos, it's big cars you can't afford, it's chains you've hired, it's women who you've never met before, in as the image. That was what was celebrity. But I think nowadays, the youngsters are woke, as they say. You can research an artist and find as much as you want, and nowadays you can't have no excuse for you have an excuse for following the wrong, from my perspective, something that's not helping or supporting the community, because the history and their whatever the artist or the musician or actor has done through their lives is all there online, so you can't escape it. Whereas back then you kind of could shy away from it and just step on stage, sing a song, and go home.
Yes.
I think in the world that I come from, which is mostly about opera and opera singing and opera acting or opera performing, you've got to actually produce the goods. You really can't fake it. You can't have a load of publicity and then get out there and not do it, not do the thing that you're saying that you can do. So that's however much publicity you have in the opera world, you've got to actually do it. And you've got to do it very well to compete and get up the ladder pretty quickly so that you don't stay in the mud at the bottom for too long, because artists who tend to start on the ladder very low, in my experience, young singers coming through tend to stay there. You need to be good enough so you come in kind of halfway up the ladder and you get up to near the top pretty quick. That should be the goal. So you've got to, as you say, know what is this business that you're entering, find out about it, find out what's required, what are people expecting of you, turn up on time, know your music, do all the work, learn your roles for a year so that you've really got them embedded in your body. As you said, there's a whole lot of work involved in all of that, but you do actually have to produce the goods and have a following. There are lots of opera singers who don't have a massive online presence, and they do the thing, and people love them for it and turn up, buy tickets to their performances, I think.
Yeah. Which brings us to training and resilience, and how resilient and how well trained needs a celebrity, how much training and resilience is needed to become a celebrity and to support a long-term career remaining a celebrity. And then we will talk a bit about, I think, distinction here of terms, because icon, diva, celebrity came up. But yeah, can we first reflect a bit about training, resilience, how the sort of two facets to the longevity also of a career?
In the work that I do with singers, young singers coming into the business and young singers continuing in the business, one needs to start learning about being resilient very early on in the learning process of being able to fail and get up and carry on, and this knowledge of yourself and self-belief, as well as being a generous colleague. One needs to have a certain ego and a belief in what one's doing. You've got to believe that you can do it. You've got to be able to do it, but you've also got to believe that you can do it. And that there's endless failures, because there is no such thing as perfection. There's loving what you're doing and doing it to the very best of your ability. And if you're not feeling that, or other people feel you're not good enough, you need to go out and find people who can work with you to help you. There's lots and lots of people there who can help you. But again, you've got to somehow know, is this person helping me or not? And that can be quite hard for young learners. So that.
Ivan is
Yes.
raising.
Well, I was just thinking maybe connection between the topic you've raised of training and resilience, and the other topic that's been raised of joining a tradition, being part of a legacy, and perhaps that's manifested in a slightly different way, but maybe that connection with the past and with drawing on the great achievements of the past, maybe in classical art, particularly Western art, gets incarnated in quite a specific set of sort of rules, you might say, that bel canto is this. You've got to put your larynx in this position.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a peculiarly Western thing, that it gets encoded in technical stuff. Maybe in your tradition, it's not encoded in technical stuff in quite the same way. Is that right?
It's there. Intersectionality for black divas is a big thing. And I remember an American singer, Diva, said to me, you need the constitution of Job. For those who don't know that biblical reference, it's resilience, that you're going to be knocked down. You're going to be knocked down, exploited, and go through bad experiences, but you're going to keep getting up. Also, for a lot of black music of African American or even African music, there are different technicalities that are involved. So there's declaiming, there's hollering, there's trilling, there's a whole technical repertoire that's very, very different. And often that will come through from spirituals and being in the church and gospel, or on the African continent being from the griot or the Jali tradition, where you literally stand in the village and they can hear you on the other side of the village. You actually got that sort of big voice, and you project it. So there's different aesthetics, there's different technical considerations, techniques. But the thing that's in common with classical and opera music is that you have to train. You have to develop the physicality, and you also have to have the ego, and you have to have the resilience. But you know that you're drawing on something that people have done before. So you know that you have to be resilient. And that's part of the mythology as well of, I would say, of the diva, that you're the one that keeps going, regardless. But you need technique. You do need technique. You need to, there's various exercises and things you need to do. And just the tradition of gospel singing, spiritual singing, or being a Jali or a griot on the African continent, that way of projecting is developing your physicality to be a singer.
Yeah, I agree.
I was thinking of Nina Simone when you're talking about as an example of the sort of, she was classically trained.
Yes, she was classically trained,
but the
pianist,
resilience came.
But she was resilient as an artist because she'd gone through a lot of exploitation.
Almost like now she's almost immortal,
But
exactly.
Aesthetically, she wouldn't be classed as a great singer by, say, gospel singers, because she would be seen as having a limited skill set, sort of thing, of the way she sang.
It's like Fela Kuti again. He didn't have the best voice.
No.
But
how he put it across.
I would like to hear from Salvatore first, and then Sally.
I think it's quite connected together in spirituals. Jessie Norman.
Yeah.
She comes from a spiritual background, an opera singer, which you can feel not only from here to the station. Their voice is amazing. But technicality. The woman was a perfection of technicality. Nothing went wrong or sideways. And when you look at her, you're thinking, oh, she's improvising. No, everything was technical. Everything was organized. She knew exactly what she was doing, the high notes, the lower notes, the middle range. Everything that she did was calculated. She knew exactly how to deliver it. And you don't go wrong with her, but that's the background that you have. All together coming up with the spirituals all the way through, that you need to project. You need to sing to the Lord. You need to sing to that top church, and you have to do it. And that's what opera singer is. You got to have a volume on your voice. I was just talking before about, Tebaldi said about singers, God is little voices all the time. And now that's what we do, little voices. They might got that diaphragm, that power of the voice anymore, because they're learning how to sing it. And it doesn't matter, you got CD, you got DVD, record it, and then you go on social media or TikTok, and they make you famous. Oh, no, look, she's wonderful, she's wonderful. There's a few of them, no names, but one is blonde.
No names.
Awful. Awful singer. She's an opera singer. No, she's not an opera singer. But she's sold as an opera singer everywhere. Everywhere she goes, she opens up at the football, she opens up Twickenham, in rugby, singing, silly songs or whatever. And you're thinking, no, that's a non-opera singer. She got a microphone. So technique is very important, because that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps a singer, like Leontine Price, 70 years old. And the voice is there, The voice is still there. She's still belted. as it should be. Technicality is very important.
I want to underline that just briefly, if I may. Adele has had multiple operations on her vocal cords for nodules, and so has Sam Smith, despite going through some kind of training. And I'm just highlighting here, is it overwork, lack of sleep, poor technique, or a combination of all these things, which the kind of singers that we're talking about will never have those problems.
Yeah, but as well the change of repertoire. I mean, you can see some singing. They go from Wagner to bel canto. You know, on Tuesday they're doing Die Valkyrie, and then next week they're doing, Pirata, or they're doing Carmen. It's like, why? Your voice is not, you need rest. In the old days, many years ago, you had time. You traveled from one place to another. You arrived. You had weeks to prepare. You organized it. You learned it together, and you deliver it.
Economics now.
That's the business that
It's
has
a business.
changed.
Yeah, change altogether. But resilience is about reading.
From people in R&B right now, a lot of neo-soul music. You've got the Georgia Smith, the Mahalia, very light vocals, and that suits a business where you're not taxing the voice too much. But what it's also doing is producing a lot of young girls that are just thinking they're singers because they can sing light. And actually, when they start doing the rigors of touring, even though they're singing in a very light, wispy kind of way, very head voice, we've got a lot of head voice singing, still that takes a toll when you're doing 25, 30 dates, tours around the world. So I'm an advocate really for good, strong, old-fashioned vocal technique. It will serve you well.
But that's why lots of people cancel. Lots of people, and they cancel shows, they cancel performances at the opera because they can't do it. You know already. Sometimes I work at the opera house. Sometimes you get, or I go around the world to see operas, and I see, such and such are doing 4 performances of Otello, and then you know that the first one is gone, and then on the second one cancelled. The voice, the weather, something happened, something personal. Why? Because they can't do it.
Can't do it.
They forced in the first one, and that's it.
First Sally, because she had, she
I can't remember what I was going to say now. Sorry.
All right.
Well, can I say something? So what we're talking about, and you possibly understand, is that the technique, what you said, it serves you, because the technique is there so that you can do the art. That's what the technique's for, so that you can have your individuality and your way of expressing the music, of telling the story, of inhabiting the character. So it's a vehicle onto which you put the art, but technique in itself is boring. But you absolutely need it in order to do the interesting bits.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I was just thinking as you were speaking that, as like obviously in today's world, like a typical artist would play, as you say, 32 shows in a month, not enough days, and would come out of the show, there's 10 interviews. After that, they have to post about the show. They come off that, they text the family to say I'm okay, and then it's on to the next city, which we got. So, like, I was just thinking just then that what we're struggling with now with celebrities nowadays, why is burnout a lot of the time, because without like all that training, without care, I guess, would just what's going to end up. You're going to burn out eventually, and I guess that's why you get people cancelling shows all the time. Whereas back in the day, you would have 4 days after a show to travel, enjoy the city you're in, and enjoy it after you play the show, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of healing time, I think.
But you got a lot of pressure now as well. People pressurize you to sing, to do shows, the new album, preparing this, do that. I got something for you. So you get pressurized by your agent, to do things that you shouldn't do in the first place, but you do. And talking about the opera world, is a lot of ego in the opera world. You learn your techniques, you study for years. You want to do Don Carlo. You can have got a voice for it, but you're going to do it. And then halfway through, they're gone. Very famous singers, then halfway through the Fontainebleau in Act 1, gone. Replaced by, because they can't do it, because they don't know how to choose their own repertoire. They're following the instructions given by the manager, which hasn't got no idea. All they want is the money. And that's all they want. And they put you down in social media, you sing a little op, a little aria, you're thinking, oh wow, she's wonderful. Let's go and see her. And then you go there and you're thinking, what? I can't hear. But it sounds so lovely on TikTok, but you can't hear the voice at all. Talking about divas as well, there's a one which I really hate. It's a one person that she learned the whole opera on a CD. She never had a partito in her hand. She never learned the words. She put a CD on and she learned it. She has a technique, and that's how she does it. She sings it by listening to the CD, and now she's a waitress in New York, because that's what happened. You haven't got a technique. You haven't got the courage to say, no, I'm not doing that, because there's no time for me. When it comes to me to do Tosca, I'll do Tosca, but not now. In a few years' time, you get a career. There's one woman, and she's the only diva left in the whole world of opera, it's Angela Gheorghiu. She doesn't do nothing else. She does 3 operas. Yeah. But the voice is still there. Wonderful Kalau, that voice is delicious, beautiful to listen to. She does the 3 operas, but the 3 operas she does, fabulous. She wouldn't do Siegfried or Diva. No, she wouldn't do that. It's not a rule. She knows exactly how to do it. And it's a woman which knows what diva is. A diva, yes, all the technicality, you learn how to do it, you have to have the public, you have to listen to people, you give to people and everything else. But in an opera world, if you're not making a step up, you stay down for a long time. Wonderful singing, but if you want to be a diva, you need to be fussy. You need to create your persona.
Oh, gosh.
You need to have costumes, see designers, fashion show, go here, go there, be advertised, cancel shows. Not because you can't do it, it's fashionable to do it. That's what we got to do. You got to people begging you to see you.
Yeah, Salvatore, we did have a paper exactly on this, adding all these layers.
That's it.
Yeah, you should have been here. Ivan was reading.
Yeah, well, I just had a thought about the importance of training. It's sort of tough love, isn't it? Submitting to a career, to a tradition is sort of tough love. And it is a kind of submission to it, isn't it? This thing that makes an objective measure of quality. This thing that I'm going to submit to is bigger than me. And the example that occurs to me, Tumi will tell me if I've got this wrong, but Charlie Parker, to think of another non-vocal thing. In his young days, I think I've got the story right. He'd already revealed his talent. People knew that there was this hot young saxophonist around, and he had this big gig in, I think, Kansas City, with a whole bunch of older players who said, "Oh, who is this? Yeah, let's bring this hot shot in and see if he's any good." And poor old Charlie Parker did not acquit himself well, and he was basically booed off the stage. And they said, "Oh, it's crap. Go away. Just go away. Work on your technique." And he was utterly humiliated and chastened, and he disappeared and practiced in private for like a year or something. I've got this right, haven't I? And then he came back, and when he came back, he was Charlie Parker. He'd become Bert, and that's what it took. It took a kind of public humiliation. So traditions are funny. They're sort of nurturing and protecting, but they're also really tough.
There's actually a word for that in jazz. It's called woodshedding. It's just repetitive practice. That is what it is. He went away and did woodshedding.
Before I open the round table to the audience, perhaps I thought Ivan launched also another term, icon, in his 5 minutes opening gambit. And so a diva is different from a celebrity, and how is different from an icon? Is there a difference?
For me, the divas I'm thinking of, they are icons and divas because it's already been mentioned. Sorry, I keep losing my mic. They also create an image. Let's use Grace Jones as an example. Iconic image. People don't realise that she's got this amazing contralto voice. She sang with Pavarotti. But everything about Grace Jones is about how she looks, the image. The same with, we saw a picture earlier of Josephine Baker in the Revue Negre, with the banana skirt and the whole flapper image. Image is important, and to become an icon, it is about the visuality of that diva. Yeah, I wouldn't. Celine Dion doesn't. Celine is what I would call an uber diva by virtue of her talent and persona and charisma, but I don't necessarily think of her as iconic. Whereas you would think of Beyonce or somebody else as iconic. It's about the entanglement of the fashion industry and the music entertainment industry to become an icon. I would suggest.
Interesting.
I mean, you can be an icon. With no particular talent at all, can't you? That's the thing. I mean, I was thinking...
Today we can.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking of Princess Diana, you know. I mean,
that's an icon.
I mean, she's the perfect icon of recent times, isn't she? Because she was so... she had this mysterious quality of being somehow remote, you know, such a perfect, fashionable figure, and yet we knew all about her sufferings. So she she really incarnated that paradox of being really close to us, and yet somehow impossible.
But hounded by paparazzi like Amy Winehouse and other people who struggle with the intrusion of the paparazzi.
Yes, suffering's part of it, isn't it?
Yes, part of it.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the sports.
No. I mean, an icon for me, Amy Winehouse is not an icon. She was a drug addict. That's what she was. You know, I'm sorry, but that's what it was. That's the reality of it. Whatever she blames the boyfriend or not, I saw her. The day she ran out with the boyfriend, she covered in blood, she came to the opera house, so we took her in. The one was a mess. You know, not because she was hunted by paparazzi, because she was high on drugs. That's what she was, high on drugs. When she started, she was an amazing singer. The first album was an amazing album. Loved it to bits. But then you get used to drugs. When you're used to drugs, 2 and 2 makes 4. You know, if you're not careful, you're not looking after it, you've got dad who doesn't care, that's what happened to you. That's not an icon. An icon is a person that when you look at her, you're thinking, oh my God.
You want to be there.
An item, somebody that can actually, you look at thinking, that's why she did it. I'm going to do exactly the same as that woman. That's an icon. You know,
well,
and there's only few icons in the world. There's not many icons in the world that they can actually follow. And an icon is Marilyn Monroe. You're thinking, oh my God, look at the imagine there. You know, an icon is callous. You know, every opera singer want to be callous.
But it's suffering again.
Suffering doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, every opera singers, I mean, you should know, every opera singers want to sing like Callas. They want to be like Callas. They want to be, oh my God, if I could do the Macbeth like Callas, I'll be done, and nobody can do it.
I think Tumi wanted to add something about icons.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that. No, obviously coming up from what you said about Amy Winehouse, I'm just thinking that. But I don't look at addiction as in that perspective. But you know, I think from an addict's point of view, who is not me, but like from someone who's an addict in industry, they'll probably see Amy Winehouse as an icon because she's representing something that a lot is not spoken about and is not not necessarily her being put in media and mainstream media on TV and showing all those insecurities, those traumas coming through. Very vulnerable. The vulnerability of Amy Winehouse, I guess, makes her somewhat an icon for a film to be made about her and the experience and life experiences. But what I was going to say originally was, I think a lot of icons for me, like it sometimes come from moments or a particular incident that's happened, like again from suffering. Like I was thinking about the 1968, the sportsman who had the fists up against was I think a baseball event in America. And that's like an iconic moment. But those three sportsmen, to me, are icons, like outside the music scene. But because I think an icon is, as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think an icon isn't, to whoever it isn't in the power of whoever's looking at that person. Because a florist, a famous florist, so someone who likes flowers could be an icon because they've, mixed some seeds together and made the perfect kind of beautiful plant.
An icon here says in a dictionary is relating to the nature of an icon, regarded as representative symbol or as worthy of veneration. So there's that aspect of an icon as well. That's a different aspect.
We have heard in papers about the relation between divas and the magical aspects that arises in the imagination of people. So I feel all these terms are quite overlapping. There are differences, but also there are shared elements that are shared among them. Thank you. This was fantastic conversation. I think this is the moment to open to questions. Yes. Thank you. We can.
Is it on? I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you so much for a really interesting roundtable. I do want to say something about the Amy Winehouse comment, just that actually I think maybe there's a risk of the causality and the effect, because actually a lot of Amy Winehouse's issues were precisely stemmed from her celebrity and from the huge amount of pressure and paparazzi focus that was put upon her. So I think it's quite dangerous to sort of, to not think about the dangers of celebrity and the abuse of celebrity. So I would say that. I also think she's incredibly talented, but we can park that one. I actually had a question for you, Carol, about sort of the racialization of the diva. Because I think every single diva you've mentioned is racialized. So you've talked about Aretha Franklin, Shirley Bassey, Grace Jones, Josephine Baker, Beyonce. And I'm working, my project's called Diasporic Divas, and I'm looking at how like the otherworldliness of the diva that we've spoken about quite a bit in this conference is often like othered. So it's nearly always gendered, but I think more and more often in more contemporary culture it's also racialized, certainly in the more popular, maybe less so in sort of modern operatic circles, but I think in more popular genres as well. And so I wondered, I really enjoyed your praise song for Black Divas, but I wondered if the Black Diva is almost tautologous in some senses, as in how much is racial othering tied into the image of modern divadom, would you think? I'm sorry, that's a big question. So you can...
I would say it is sometimes. For example, in this country, colloquially amongst a lot of black singers, female singers in London, for example, who end up doing backing vocals for big stars, they understand that that's all they're going to do. They're going to be in the mud. they're not going to get up and get their own solo deal or an album. And it's almost as if there's gatekeepers who kind of like, we're only going to have Beverly Knight, and that's it. We're not having any more, black singers or female singers or divas. And I think you're right to raise that. And also I was thinking about in the music industry, within culture, what is that black diva monolith? Because it is there. And if you look into, say, gay subcultures, it's even more embedded, Calluses and all the operatic divas are as well within gay culture. But when you go into gay subcultures, the black diva is a massive monolith within that. And this is controversial in some ways, but I kind of think they have a sort of black mammy role, that there's a kind of safety. This is me going out there now, in terms of a feminine archetype. A black feminine archetype, goddess, if you will, but there's also that feminine of the mother, a black mammy, if you will. So I think that's part of it. That's not all of it, but that's part of it. I know you've never thought of it that way, have you?
I'm just on this. I think Beyonce is considered a diva, but I don't think Taylor Swift is, and I'm really interested in why that is. And I do think it's a racial question. I think they're equally talented. Well, actually,
it's a racial, but it's also a vocal one. Yeah. A diva has to have a really extraordinary, remarkable vocal range, vocal virtuosity and dexterity. I'm not sure that Taylor Swift or Adele, who's had numerous nodule operations, actually fits that.
I've got a question. Is Madonna be considered a diva?
Absolutely not.
Ooh, interesting.
What did you say?
Madonna.
Madonna.
Yeah.
She would be a diva of popular culture. You can be a cultural icon, but not a diva. A diva has this vocal prowess.
Interesting.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question that could be for any of you. It's been something I've been thinking about a lot over the past few days, and Kimberly, in her presentation on Chapel Rowan earlier today, quoted Spider-Man, what with great power comes great responsibility. And it's funny, but it's something I've been thinking a lot about in relation to celebrity, as we've been talking about these celebrities from different centuries. And so I have a question that's very subjective, but I'd just be curious to know your thoughts on it, is what is the responsibility of the celebrity to uphold certain ideals, values, be a role model for certain other people in the public, because they're often expected to represent a certain kind of morality or a certain kind of political expectation. And people have been pushing back against that in the modern era as well, in social media. Why should I have to be some sort of role model so I'm just curious what you guys think about that relationship between celebrity and responsibility to represent a certain kind of person in the public eye. And has that changed?
Well, I think I'm curious also about diva being, is it a female thing? Or does it also come? We also have divo. We have men. But anyway, that's another question. But I think that there should be a responsibility of people at the top of their game to be an example to those coming up who will take their place, possibly. But it has been revealed that there are, for instance, Placido Domingo has been, in the Me Too exposure, whether he did or not, but I think he probably did. Sorry,
that's an issue with this.
He probably did do what they said he did. He was a very familiar guy. Is this working? Yes. I came across him when I sang at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and he was a big star, and I was just doing a star role there, but I wasn't a star, as it were, like him. And he, and I thought he's a very nice guy and very friendly, and snuggling up close and then putting his arm around me. And then when all this Me Too stuff came out, and that's a kind of betrayal of his position, it seems. And then you may or may not have read all the scandalous things that came out that he was said to have done. And so that kind of, I don't know, was it all happening in a time when men were allowed to do that kind of thing, and now it isn't okay for men to do that kind of thing. And I'm sure there are other people who come into that storyline, but there is a great tradition of people, divas and divos, who become top of their game and become an example to people who are very generous to young singers. I know that Renée Fleming, I haven't ever worked with her, but I know singers who have and who've learned a lot from her just by being in rehearsal with her and her being generous. Kiri Te Kanawa helps particularly New Zealand singers, but all sorts of singers along the way financially and as a mentor. Mentoring young performers is really, really important to help them know what the business is that they're going into, and also dealing with the vulnerability that we need to be. We need to have that element of vulnerability as performers, that we allow ourselves to be seen. But then that can make us feel vulnerable as people rather than vulnerable as a character. When we're on the stage, we're allowed to be somebody else. And to me, that's always been a very cathartic experience. Allowing yourself to be a murderer or somebody who chucks flowers at people and puts spells on people, and it's a wonderful exploration. But it can also be dangerous if the actor doing that allows themselves to feel vulnerable with it.
I think there is certainly my experience. I've been mentored by divas, American gospel and soul divas in America, and I myself am mentoring young singers and vocal coaching, and we take that as a responsibility. But also I was told by Jocelyn Brown that what we're doing in performance is channeling, and it comes from a higher source. I mean, this is what I was told. And that you have a responsibility putting that energy out into an audience, and that audience is giving you back energy, and that you're like a transducer. And it was important to understand that. And she saw me do a sound check at Royal Albert Hall and came right over to tell me all of this. I'd never met her in my life, this incredible American black diva. And she was saying, you're singing down, which is a gospel expression, which means you are singing from some source, some higher source, and you're transducing it down into this earthly realm. So yes, there's a responsibility.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, but maybe also, without maybe consciously feeling it as a responsibility, divas provide examples of how you could achieve a sort of magic fusion between two things which seem opposed. One is to be a really perfect, not perfect maybe, but as close as damn it, a perfect exemplar of something, of a certain sort of skill, on the one hand, and on the other, being an absolute individual, which is a mysterious thing, isn't it? You're sort of both at once, and it's sort of magic quality. And the really best artists, manifest that. They actually bring it to life, make it real. I mean, of course, there's a sort of gap sometimes, isn't there? I mean, Callas was famously not technically perfect, but she nevertheless took technique very seriously. It's not like she said, "Oh, I'm above all that." No, on the contrary, she practiced like fury, and in her art, she makes, she offers this wonderful example to younger artists, doesn't she, of how you're constantly striving to be both a perfect example of the thing that you do, and also perfectly yourself at once. It's an amazing thing.
I think it's interesting how celebrities sort of inherit that responsibility. I'm just trying to think of an example. I guess if you work in a particular, let's see, a Kneecap. Everyone's heard about Kneecap now, but everyone seen them live?
No, I haven't.
No. Yeah. What kind of music they make?
Irish hip hop.
Irish.
Yeah. But this all happened in the last 6 months. They are officially the celebrities, I guess, because they have spoken, and they're young lads. So it's that kind of thing. But they've kind of inherited that sort of that Celtic, fierceness of, speaking up and and using that platform to do that eloquently, because the whole world heard it. They picked that moment in that gig in America where they knew everyone's, and Trump's in power, and there's stuff happening in Palestine. We won't hear about it, but they used the opportunity to make sure that was said. They inherited that, I think. And if there was any Tom, Dick, and Harry on the high street, you're just going to get the police, take them off the high street because of noise pollution or whatever.
We have another two questions. Malo?
Yes, several of you talked about Maria Callas, and I'm really interested in that subject. And I think it's you, Hewett, that told us about suffering, and you referred to the movie with Angelina Jolie. And I thought maybe it's our common responsibility to not maybe emphasize too much about that, because if you read, because it's my work, her writings, her letters and her memoirs, sometimes she pities herself and she has the right to do so and reasons to do so. But also there is a lot about gratitude. She always thanks her teacher. She's also very grateful for toward the audience, but also regarding private matters. And I didn't like the movie. I thought because it was so, it was just her regretting things. But even in her last memoirs in 1977, the year of her death, she wasn't regretting at all her story with Onassis, for example. She was really grateful for just having met the love of her life at some point. And so I think it might be also our responsibility to also mention all this, and also that Diva, they have the right to talk about really not elevated matters. She sometimes writes letters, entire letters about her dog, about medical stuff, about really, I don't know, private and not elevated matters at all. And we tend to forget about that, writing really movies about really distant figure, remote figures, just her wandering with her robes in her apartment, thinking about medication and thinking about the loss of her voice, etc. So I think there can be another image of the diva that really existed. It's not in our imagination, in opposition to this kind of public representation of the diva.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Barbara and I agree that we both dislike the movie enormously.
I dislike the movie.
Yeah, I don't like the movie at all.
No, I don't like the movie.
And it was a bit, I don't know, very Americanized, a bit, too much. Just showing off whatever.
You could see the movie and not guess that she was a great artist. We didn't see her power at all.
No.
But I remember I was in Paris the same year, 2 weeks before, because my mum's birthday was on the 9th of August. So around that week after, we went to Paris, we stayed with her and everything else. And the week after, then she died, And you're right, she was an amazing, happy woman. Her life was what she wanted, what she desired. She had everything that she wanted to, in the way of success. She did the role that she wanted to do. She had what she wanted as a singer. And was she happy to be an icon? Yes, she was happy to be an icon. She walked like an icon. She stood like an icon. All that she wear was diamonds and like people give to her for free to wear. And she'd do it. But in the private life, she was easy. She was an easy. She was sitting there and she would come to you, she wouldn't drink, she would come to you and chat and whatever. She would talk to you about, do you remember when I did this? Do you remember when I did that? She was lovely. She adores the dogs, she adores, the flat. She was really, I remember from that age that she was lovely. Sometimes she would cry, she would cry. If you put a lacrimosa aria, she will cry. I remember that. I remember that. I remember one of the things she did. I remember her being almost like a mother sometimes. She was, sometime when I was little, when I was 6 or 7 years old, that she will cuddle me in a sitting room and singing the humming song in Butterfly, that one. And she put words in it. Like, go to bed or your mum will kill you. That kind of thing. And I remember her being normal.
Yeah, divas can be normal. And that's why your points were really important, because
but she knew she had a responsibility to the audience.
Want to make a movie or write
No. Yeah.
After all, she was a normal person.
And you can never make a movie about an icon. You can never make a movie an icon because you know bits of it, but you don't know the rest of it altogether.
No.
We have a question from Catherine. Perhaps we should take the question, otherwise we run out of time.
I will try and give an actual question. I had two questions, actually. One was about the question that Madison raised about the responsibility of great power, and I was quite struck by how the examples that you gave of exercising that power were still very much within the fields in which you were divas, and a lot of the policing of celebrity and celebrity statements have been this idea of you're stepping outside of your area of expertise. And I wondered, so the responsibility of mentoring, etc., is in this area of technical skill as well as resilience and emotional, etc. But so I wondered about that broader sense of moral responsibility of a platform. And, I think it's not universal that people are policed for making political statements when they're actors or singers, but often there is a, get back in your box thing. So there's that question. The other one was specifically about the idea of vessel that you mentioned, Carol, because in some of the papers we've been talking about the real ambivalence of that and the incredibly gendered nature of that, that it has to do with the tradition of seeing women as passive recipients, and particularly in an operatic context of music, that they just transmit, and it can be a minimizing of agency, and and this comes back actually to that question that we were talking about the gender of celebrity and why we're largely talking about divas rather than divos. and the vessel nature, which I wondered also is to do with our very partial version of what we're seeing on the stage as well. It's not just a vessel for music, but a vessel for us to put things onto as well. But maybe that is easier with our associations of femininity as passive and receiving. So those were the two points.
I wanted to respond, if I may, to the whole vessel thing. It may not have come across. Certainly in the black tradition, it's not a passive vessel. It's very much an active, powerful role. And it echoes to matriarchal times. That woman has that power of the voice. It is magical. Words, sound, power. It's a magical power. I hope when I was talking about that, it wasn't a one-way traffic. It's an interactive thing as well. Talking about moral responsibility, I think it's dehumanizing if we strip away from our icons and our divas the fact that they are human beings. And as human beings, they will have views and passions and thoughts and opinions about things. And there will be artists and there will be divas and divos who speak on issues that are controversial or political, and that's fine with me. In fact, I like it if you know where someone stands, because that's part of their humanity, I would say.
I think we have a question from Michelle.
I was going to ask the panel about the role of social media. Ivan mentioned about the sacred place and being near but not near. Do you think social media enhanced the effect? Because as a singer, my friends in the department, they would come to me, I actually hear Nursing Doma on Instagram. But the version they hear is Pavarotti, Pacelli, the recordings of Carles, and I was like, do you know, actually we've got living artists who sings that repertoire? And then they were like, no. So that leads on to another question that I've got. Do you think social media makes young artists or the upcoming divas more difficult to be in the light? Because because we gonna spread out all these old recordings, then no one will ever really know them actually. So it also requires them to promote themselves more on social media. I just want to know your thoughts about it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good question, to which I have no answer. Let me think.
Well, I think whether they're operas, up-and-coming divas, or they're neo-soul, raw R&B artists, or even writers, everyone nowadays in the cultural industries is expected to be self-promoting. And it's work, it's labour. Unless you've got your super Hollywood stars and you've got someone, PR people, to do your social media for you. And the danger with it is that there's a lot of competitiveness around that. How do you get your head above the parapet. What makes you as a soprano different to that soprano there, that one there, that one there, that one there? I mean, it makes it more competitive in some ways using social media. And I think it can be a hiding to nothing. Do gigs, perform, build your audience.
Yes, I think by its nature, you know, social media encourages tiny attention spans, as we know, and if a new soprano floats up into your screen momentarily, the temptation is, you know, you listen to it and you think, oh, okay, yeah, that's sort of interesting, and you're on to the next, you know, and so I think it's rather a treacherous sort of medium, honestly, and I'm with Carol really. I think you know the live gig in a small venue, however small, in the end will give you more.
I agree, visibility at any cost, visibility. If you want to make it, you need to go there. You need to be on social media, you need to be in the square, you need to be in the piazza, you need to be anywhere where your voice is heard. Because the more they hear your voice, the more the people follow you, they understand, they know who you are. You need to be there, you know, and the moment is all about social media. That's all we have. You know, you could see that people on social media, they everything is there, you know, and we are old people, and we understand the old operas, you know, and you're right, you know, Callas, or Tito Gobbi, or, you know, whatever, because that's what we come from, that's what we learned over the years, that's what we listened to for years and years and years. But we still listen to everything new comes up on TikTok. I listen to music. I go to the Covent Garden Piazza to see those people singing in the piazza and listen what they have to say and how they do it. I go to small little place in Oxton or whatever, little opera centre, where the young artists or students are performing. Trinity College, they do a wonderful program there, which they sing as well there. I like to go there and listen to it. I want to see where the new voices comes up, you know, and how they are, you know, and how is that better than the other one, stronger, not stronger, and maybe there needs some work to be done in certain voices to make it a little bit better. But you need to be there. You need to put everything out that you have that we can listen to and appreciate your art, what you study for, your music.
And get a mailing list from them when they come and see you. If they come up to you and say, oh, that was wonderful. Oh, well, would you like my Facebook tag or my Instagram, or can I get your email? And I'll tell you when my next performance is. I mean, the face-to-face, you build that up slowly, but it will be more meaningful for your career to have real people that like and engage with what you do, rather than someone who looks at you for 2 seconds and moves on social media.
Yes, so the social media thing is really just to facilitate the live interaction.
Yes, I think so. That would be a good way of putting it.
I love those QR code. I love the QR code. And you got the music there, and you listen to the person singing and whatever. But I'm going to give you the gossip to finish, because I want to get this gossip. We're talking about Nessun Dorma, you know? So I was looking after Pavarotti, sure, name dropping while I'm here, why not? And we were in America, and guess who was a guest in there? Ari Franklin. Rita Franklin was there. Pavarotti had a little bug.
Oh yes, she sang Nessun Dorma.
And
yes.
I asked if she could do one aria.
Are you responsible for that?
I'm responsible. She didn't know it. I don't know if you noticed.
She didn't.
And she came and she sang Nessun Dorma because Pavarotti was sick. Was it live? It was called live or recorded, I can't remember.
It's on YouTube.
No, and she said, oh, can you hold my coat? Because she loved the fur coat. So I hold her coat. She went in and she did a Nessun Dorma. Okay? Which is not, it's a tenor aria, it's not, you know, it's not a soprano. But she did it in a way that a soprano aria there, with a bit of spiritual there, and a little, it was one of the best things that you can listen to on Nessun Dorma of anybody else. And that's what, a little gossip for you, Flora.
Wow.
One of my favorite divas.
Wow.
Okay, that I think we are, I think we had a very long session, a very long day, and there is a drinks reception to follow, so you can continue to ask your questions. Shall we give a big round of applause? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This was the glorious ending of the actors, singers, and celebrity cultures across the centuries conference.
Well done.
Well done, Barbara.
Yeah.